Welcome to the County Manager's Report. I'm Lloyd Higuera. With me is our County Manager, Larry Werner. Welcome, Larry.
Thank you, Lloyd.
Good to have you here with us. And we're going to be talking today about the August 18th meeting of the Douglas County Board of Commissioners. They met up at Lake Tahoe for that meeting. And at the meeting, commissioners did approve a contract with 4 Point Engineering in the amount of $567,199 for the Johnson Lane Park Site Improvement Project. And what are some of the improvements that we'll see there at Johnson Lane Park?
Well, some of them have been completed. We've got the new restroom facility and the playground, and now with the contract with 4 Point, I apologize. They're looking at new tennis courts, a ball wall, which I'm trying to figure out what that is, but I think it's something you bounce a ball off of. And then the basketball half courts, a new gazebo. They're going to relocate the existing gazebo, and then ultimately, which is not a part of this contract, they're going to put in a new dog park. They're trying to sort out now exactly how to do it, but it'll consist of almost all new facilities out there.
Okay, very good. So they're going to get all that for $567,000.
Pretty much, yes.
Okay. Also, commissioners moved ahead with a resolution that was requesting an opinion, I should say, from the Nevada Secretary of State regarding an interpretation of the Nevada law pertaining to election of directors. This is in regard to the Douglas County Sewer Improvement District Number 1. So are we moving any closer to getting a resolution to this matter?
I think this will answer one question that has been raised by both the Douglas County Sewer Improvement District Board and their attorney, and then some of the general community about whether or not what part of the NRS 309 that they were formed under applies or doesn't apply, and at what point does NRS 318 kick in. And those two have different definitions of how you elect directors. And I think this is will bring that to a head, at least whether or not the District Attorney Jackson's concerns over how they were elected will help, I believe will help substantiate his position on why there's a problem there. But until the Secretary of State actually issues an opinion, we won't really know for sure. And then from that point on, I'm not exactly sure where it heads.
Because there are other issues too that have to be settled.
Right.
But this is kind of the starting point?
Yes, yes. At least for that part on the election part.
Okay.
And because there was some concern about, well, maybe they should just have another election and make sure everything's done according to NRS 309, which they claim already has been. But there's just a question whether or not that is even applicable. So that became a kind of a sticking point particularly for the board in making a decision.
It sounds like this one will be around for a while then.
I think so. Yeah, it's a pretty significant deal, and it's it's just a tough process and tough issue that the district attorney's facing, and then the board's trying to figure out what's the best way to go. And a lot of things to shake out on that yet. Yeah,
well, like you say, the board has to make a lot of decisions. Whether to take it over, the county takes it over, or one of the other GIDs takes it over. There's so many options.
Right, and that's part of the difficulty is what happens then. And I know our Public Works Director, Carl Rushmeyer, made a presentation on if we had to take it over, where would we see some of the savings? And the idea there would be, though, is not necessarily to take it over and keep it, but maybe reform it or combine it with another district, that sort of thing. But in the meantime, the concern was, are the actions taken by the board legal and sustainable? And that became a problem. So we're kind of waiting to see how that will fall out.
Okay, well, we'll keep our eye on that one. August 18th meeting, commissioners approved a contract for the implementation of a Douglas County Stormwater Utility. That contract was between Douglas County and House Moran Consulting in the amount not to exceed $199,225. So are we moving closer to a stormwater plan?
Well, hopefully. And the issue is that stormwater has been a topic of conversation for many, many years here in Douglas County, and the issue seems to have always focused on the ability to get a dedicated funding source to address some of these issues that we have. So the proposal we did before this meeting, I think one of the last meetings in July, was to talk about how do you want us to approach this, and the board directed there to come back and look at a stormwater fee that we would look at imposing. And this is how we would develop that fee. Basically, we go through and look at impervious surface, that parts of a lot, a residential parcel, at the roof line, the driveway, anything that would take water from that parcel and put it onto the public streets or into the public ditch. That then would make a person a part of the contributing problem, and therefore should help pay for kind of solving that problem. And so this goes through, looks at what kind of areas we have, how we would drive the fee, what kind of costs we're trying to recover. For example, we have multiple agencies within the county dealing with stormwater. We have our engineering section that deals with the TMDL issues up at the lake, water clarity issues. We have permit requirements in North County that are through the Municipal Small Storm Sewer System program from the US EPA. And there's requirements there. We have road maintenance from our road maintenance department. So all of these are being funded through the general fund, and we're getting to the point that we just don't have enough money to do what needs to be done. It won't solve all the flooding problems, but it'll allow us then to do the analysis of the problems, try to then come up with programs that resolve those and make sure that our existing stormwater system, our ditches and stuff, are adequately maintained so that we don't have problems downstream. So hopefully we'll see where it goes. We're going to do a series of town hall meetings. We're getting those set up now to try to go out into the different areas of the county and explain what this is all about and hear the issues from the community, not only about the fee, but about what they see out there as problems. And hopefully we'll be able to come back to the board in a few months with the idea of that this is a recommended fee and here's what the money would be used for, and hopefully we'll have community support. If we don't have the community support, then again, we would not do this. So.
Sure. Well, this is kind of a starting point, isn't it? This is putting together a plan and
Correct.
How
Correct.
to manage all that stormwater.
Right.
Yeah.
Initially, we looked at it, and we need about 1.9 million a year to address the stormwater.
A year?
Issue. A year.
Wow.
And that's been the problem. We've been able to kind of take out little pieces here and there each year to try to do some small projects, but we just don't have an ongoing source of funding that we can address this. So hopefully we'll be able to take care of that here in the future.
Okay. Another item commissioners considered was they decided to impose liquor license sanctions on the Gardnerville Walmart for the sale of alcohol to a minor. What does some of those sanctions consist of?
Well, it's a multi-phase project when they go out and do a compliance check, and if they do find that liquor is sold to an underage person as part of the compliance check, on the first offense, then essentially they get a letter from the sheriff's office outlining the problem and kind of putting them on notice that, hey, you know, this citation got issued and you need to be aware and you need to have your people trained. On the second offense, if it occurs within 2 years of the date of the first offense, then they need to attend the Douglas County Liquor Board, which is the Board of County Commissioners plus the sheriff. And at that point, that liquor board can impose that they send their employees to mandatory training to refresh them on how to look for IDs and what to watch for. They can assess a monetary penalty, and I don't know what the limits of those are, but I think it's in the $1,000 to $5,000 range, somewhere in that area. And if it's significant enough, they can do a temporary suspension of the sale of liquor. So in the most recent case, they did do that. They required for a 30-day period, they have to get all their employees trained. They were assessed, I believe, a $2,000 penalty, and then they have to cease from selling alcohol for a 7-day period.
I see.
And then on the third offense, all of those sanctions kind of mount up, but then also the board at that point can revoke or totally suspend the liquor license. So it's kind of a cumulative effect.
Sure.
And there is some discretion to the board, obviously, about how significant it is and what the circumstances were, which is usually why they want to have the store owner, manager show up at the board meeting and talk about what happened, why did it happen, what are they doing to correct that situation. So this is just a little more incentive to make sure it happens.
So that was a second offense for
Yes.
the Gardnerville Walmart. So you don't even want to think about a third offense.
No,
Really?
no,
Yeah.
that gets pretty significant at that stage.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, thank you for explaining the the whole procedure there. Commissioners also at that meeting approved a letter to be sent to the Southern Nevada Public Land Management Act Executive Committee offering to enter into a monitoring contract with BLM for the Dangberg Home Ranch Conservation Easement. I wonder if you could untangle that for us.
Okay.
Give us some detail.
There were two projects that were submitted to the Southern Nevada Land, Southern Nevada Public Land Management
It's a
Act.
mouthful.
And one of those was the Esquaga Ranch on the north end of the valley up off of Jacks Valley Road. That one was approved to allow the monies then to go purchase a conservation easement. The second one was, and that was done through the Forest Service. The way it works is that the money goes to the Forest Service or to whatever federal agency, then that agency then buys a conservation easement from a particular piece of property under question. And the federal agency then becomes the monitor and the guardian of that easement. And in the case of the Dangberg Ranch, the concern there is that there are a lot of easements currently being purchased through BLM. And the question came, are they able to monitor those easements? And by that it means that once the conservation easement goes down, then there should be no new buildings that had not been anticipated within the easement. There should be no new roadways. Fences and stuff should pretty much stay the same. So they need to be monitored to make sure none of that is happening on the property. And because of the concern that there were so many lands out there that BLM was monitoring and maybe not having the staffing to monitor it, they elected not to grant the Dangberg one. So we thought, well, maybe if we offered to help monitor some of these easements, it might then convince the executive committee that there is a way to keep track of these conservation easements. So I sent a letter to the executive committee saying that I would be willing to enter into, for the county, an MOU with a memorandum of understanding with BLM to provide that monitoring to them if that would be something that would help move the Dangberg Ranch Conservation Easement Program forward. And the reason I did that is that the county currently does aerial photography every 2 years over most of the valley now, and it's done for the assessor's office as well as others, emergency management and those sorts of things. So we can actually look at before and after photographs of these and see if there's been any changes or any problems. So from our standpoint, it wasn't a big increase in workload, and if it can get that conservation easement, then that's a pretty significant deal. So we've not heard back. We don't know if that's going to make any difference, but at least we thought we'd give it a try. I had sent the letter out about a month ago, and I felt, though, that I probably should bring it to the board and have them ratify the letter just to make sure they were aware of what was going on, and if there was concerns there, we could always withdraw the offer, but they did support the idea, and so we'll continue to push and see if that helps us get the conservation easement monies for the Dangberg Ranch.
Okay, well, very good. That you personally are going to be doing that along with the BLM.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. That'd be a tough job.
Yeah, up there in the helicopter, I can see you now with your...
Yeah, exactly.
Well, commissioners gave direction to staff at that meeting on the potential separation of the Cave Rock and Upaway Estates water systems. That would be for accounting, budgeting, and rate setting purposes.
This one is even more confusing than the previous one. The issue there is that over the years, the county has looked at consolidating the water systems, which, with the idea that you'd end up with, the initial goal was end up with a uniform water rate and a uniform boundary, and all these water systems essentially would be one. And then in 2014, it became evident that the idea of a uniform rate across the water systems wasn't really going to be equitable. Mainly because a lot of the some of the water systems did a lot of investment in their systems and kept up with it, so there was not a lot of future cost that we were seeing there, whereas others had got to the point that there could be some significant improvements that were required. So in 2014, the decision was made to call the systems consolidated from a more kind of a legal standpoint, but then track each one independently from its financial standpoint. And therefore, if there were improvements needed on a particular pre-existing water system, then the users of that would then stand the cost of fixing it. The two that were under question here were the Cave Rock and Upaway were left combined. And the question came up is, should we then separate those two so that we have everybody who had a previous water system now was responsible for their own costs, but yet they're all within a combined area. And the decision was there is, yes, let's separate them financially. We're doing the engineering reports that will tell us what the costs are for each one of these systems, so we can sit down with each one of the users within their particular water system and explain what their rate might be based on their own water system and not somebody else's. So ultimately the goal is to get them all combined, and it may take years to do that, just trying to get everything together. But
Sure.
At this point the idea was, well, let's treat everybody equally.
Yeah, those systems all up at the lake have been operating the way they are operating now for many, many years.
That's right. That's right. And like I say, some of them have reinvested in their systems and they've kept them up to date. Some of them have not.
Yeah.
And it's the ones that have not that are going to see the huge capital costs in the future, just because of line deterioration,
Sure.
all kinds of issues that need to be fixed.
Okay. Also at the meeting, commissioners did make an appointment to the Airport Advisory Committee. I guess somebody left?
Yes, there was a resignation, and then out of our office, we put out ads for people that are interested in these different committees. In fact, there's a bunch of committees that the county has. If anybody's ever interested, they can go on our website and take a look under boards and committees and get an idea what's out there, plus what they do. And the Airport Advisory Committee is there to kind of just help look into community relations, kind of the overall operations, that sort of thing. And the lady that applied was Alexandra Kingset, I believe is how to pronounce her name. I apologize if I've got it wrong. And the board basically looked at the resume, and the airport committee had kind of vetted it, and so she was appointed to the board.
Okay. And one more from that August 18th meeting. Commissioners introduced an ordinance to correct an error concerning the Board of Directors of the China Spring Youth Camp.
Right. There was the China Springs Youth Camp is basically a state facility, although it's handled in Douglas County, and it works under the direction of the different judicial districts within the state. Several years ago, they added the 10th judicial district, and then all the operating agreements were modified to reflect that. And then I think at the last session they created an 11th district, the state legislature did. And in the process of amending that agreement, we omitted the 10th and added the 11th. So this is to go back and add them both together. So this
Little
is
housekeeping there.
Yeah, clerical error.
Okay. So that pretty much takes care of the August 18th meeting. We move on to September now. Do you have a preview of what September
I do.
meeting?
A lot of the meeting is internal reporting that we typically go through, like on the consent calendar, where we report on the finances and fees and that sort of
Right.
thing. East Fork Fire has is now starting to do some of their things, and we're starting to get reports from them, which is included this time. And then on the actual administrative agenda, where we take public testimony and hearings, there are 3 interesting presentations that are right off the start. One of them is from 2 of them are from the Carson Water Subconservancy District. One of them is to report on the Carson River Watershed Regional Floodplain Management Plan for Douglas County, and this relates pretty much to the Carson River and kind of where they are with that. I think Commissioner Pensel mentioned that there was some contracts they were looking at there that were talking about developing some ordinances and stuff for the floodplain management. The second one will be by Ed James, the general manager for the Subconservancy, will be talking about the current water supply, how we are looking for groundwater or water supply for domestic and irrigation. And then there will be a presentation about the Main Street Gardnerville program, kind of just where it sits, what's going on there, more in your shop, I guess, kind of what's going on there. But Paula Lockridge is going to make the presentation there, and I think it should be pretty interesting. As far as the actual action items, very quickly, the clerk treasurer will be looking at and getting approval for selected sites for the permanent and temporary polling places for the next November 8th election. And we have a change in the agreement we had with the Employees Association. There's some confusion on the one that we presented last time, and this is to clarify that on how we looked at a one-time payment, yeah, and there was some confusion about how that was working. So that's being corrected. We're starting the bonding program for the gas tax monies that was just instituted in February, I believe. There was an additional 5 cents that was added to the gas tax in Douglas County. This is to get the bonds sold, that we actually get out and start putting this money to work so we can actually get these projects going. So this is the beginning process of that, introducing kind of getting the resolutions needed to start the bonding process, hiring the bond counsel to help us through that. So that's Christine Valetich's program, so she'll be making the presentation there. In social services, we're having the more discussion on the adult daycare club. Actually, we had to adopt some policies and procedures manuals to satisfy both state and federal requirements. And then there's an agreement with East Fork Fire District where they have currently had a billing program for billing both Medicare, Medicaid, and insurance programs for their hospital or their ambulance transports. We're looking at contracting back with them to do the billing for the community health programs and the adult daycare and those kinds of things, as opposed to creating our own billing section within the county. So we're looking at an agreement there. And then East Fork is saying that they can do that, but they're going to need to add additional staff, and so they're having an approval on to add an additional person to do that, and then we'll have an agreement with them to pay, I believe it's up to $85,000 a year to provide that service, and will actually depend on how much billing is occurring through our portion of it, and it will be adjusted accordingly. For Public Works, we're having some cleanup on the sewer rates. I should be careful how I say that. For the situation where we have commercial buildings that may be shut down or shuttered for a period of time, the way our rate system is set up, there's a continuing charge on the sewer because of the way it's billed. And in this case, we're looking at reducing that cost to our fixed cost when a commercial building, basically quits using the building. And it should see a little bit of reduction in the cost for somebody that is in that particular situation. Community development, we have a grant coming in forward for a FEMA grant to redo one of the bridges on State Route 88 over the East Fork of the Carson River. This one states it up to it's 1.6 million. It ultimately is what we need to get to, and this is working in conjunction with NDOT, with FEMA, to try to get the funding to widen the bridge, get it up to current standards, allow for pedestrian movement and for bicycles.
Very good.
Yeah, and then we're looking again at the community development block grant reports. There's going to be a second round, and that's to kind of explain to the board what that's going to be about and how we're going to go about doing that, as well as setting up the community development block grant funding cycle for next year. And the last one in the community development is an easement that's to abandon a public easement that looks more like a road than an easement, and that one probably was going to generate some interest. The property owner is not very happy with it, but the people that use it are not very happy with the idea of not having it. So we'll see what the day has to offer, and that's essentially it.
Boy, well, that's a lot. Okay, well, Larry, I want to thank you for all the information you shared with us here on the County Manager's Report. I'm Lloyd Higuera for County Manager Larry Werner, and we'll see you next time right here on the County Manager's Report.